Right, let's get started. Polling Canada is reporting this. House vote motion for a public inquiry into foreign interference. Yay, 172. Nay, 149. Han Dong votes yay. All parties in favor except Liberal. And I mean, what do you think should happen if? Why would you think, just speculating, using your head, why would you think that the Liberals would not want to investigate the Chinese interference in our elections? Why? What are your top 3 reasons? Because they benefited? Because they knew and didn't do anything? Because Justin Trudeau himself personally benefited in his personal riding? And isn't that concerning for your rank and file Liberal? Wouldn't that be concerning? Wouldn't you sit as an independent? Go sit with Voung, right? I think it's Kevin Voung. We'll look at Voung in just a minute. Sam Cooper says the motion is carried. The House votes yay for public inquiry into foreign interference, 172 to 149. And so that's interesting. Michael Cooper says, Jagmeet Singh takes credit for this. He says, the NDP motion to launch a public inquiry into foreign interference passed, despite attempts by the Conservatives to block it and Liberals voting against it. Now Justin Trudeau needs to launch an independent public inquiry without delay. It's the right thing to do. And Michael Cooper says, your spin is pathetic, Jagmeet. The CPC strengthened your weak motion. Your motion before a CPC amendment would have allowed Prime Minister Trudeau to appoint another Liberal crony to head the inquiry. And let's not forget that your MPs voted 3 times to block Telford from testifying. Yeah, I mean, accurate, but... National Post is reporting, here's why the outrageous Han Dong scandal is plausible. And it's an opinion piece in the National Post. And Dean highlights this part. The PMO claimed that it had been unaware of Dong's meeting with Beijing's Toronto Consul General and suggested that the MP had never been used as a diplomatic back channel. Yet the Liberals had been warned as far back as 2019 that Dong was likely a Beijing collaborator. Now, the speculation is basically that the phones were bugged at the Chinese embassy or at the Chinese consul. And so that's how this information got to CSIS. And people were worried that Han Dong himself had been targeted by CSIS and had his phone bugged. And that's apparently not the case, I guess. The target or the place that was bugged was the phone lines of the Toronto consul, presumably because of the suspected election interference, right? Which is a crime, right? So that's very interesting. It's very interesting that Han Dong would be caught in this whole thing, but even more interesting that there's transcripts. So we could probably prove guilt or innocence. Let us hear the tapes if there's transcripts, right? Global News reports, or it's Global News, one of them, it's possibly Globe and Mail, reports that they didn't have access to the transcript or they couldn't verify the transcript, one or the other. So that's interesting to me. Here's Pierre Poilievre, and this is 5 full minutes of him trying to get an answer from Melanie Joly. There's 3 great different segments. He's very slow and he's very, very purposeful with his speech here. He's trying to be very clear about what he's asking in order to get a response, a proper response, a cogent response. He wants a very specific question answered. And the Liberals don't answer questions they don't like. So I mean, it just is what it is. But here's Poilievre trying to get around that. And Melanie Joly not giving up an inch. Here we go.
For 1,000 days, the 2 Michaels sat hopeless in a windowless cell, fed in doggy bowls that were slid under their door, going 8 months without seeing consular support. Yet according to Global News, a Liberal MP allegedly contacted the Chinese consulate and encouraged them to delay the release of these 2 Michaels for partisan Liberal gain. The intelligence services that came up with this information to the media would have told the Prime Minister. When did they tell him?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me be clear. Bringing back the 2 Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, was the utmost priority of this government, of all members of this House, of all Canadians across the country. For 2 years, we've worked tirelessly to make sure that these 2 Michaels, which were arbitrarily detained by China, would be coming back safe home. That's what we did, and that was the only priority. Thinking otherwise is actually false.
Strong words. Can you say that about Melanie Joly? Is that sexist? Strong words from the foreign minister. And Poilievre responds. There's a couple. I'll show you one more, maybe 2 more. Here we go.
We have two members of our national security services that have told the media that a Liberal MP told the Chinese not to release the two Michaels. I've now twice asked when the Prime Minister, his office, or his department were informed of this startling revelation. So I'm going to ask a third time, and I ask the Minister to answer. When did the Prime Minister become aware of these allegations? When?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, September 24th, 2021 was a great day for Canada. It was the day when the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, came back safely home to Canada.
Does this sound like a group of people who you would trust to get to the bottom of the China investigation? What day was the Prime Minister briefed? September 21st was a great day when Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig were returned to Canada. Could we get to the bottom of this, please? It's wasting time. It's not serious, like Melanie Joly's not serious. But I wouldn't trust this government to water my plants, never mind getting to the bottom of a Chinese infiltration plot, especially when the Prime Minister himself benefited from it, it seems, right? And they don't want to get to the bottom of it. They're voting against getting to the bottom of it. Here's the last question Poilievre asks in this 5-minute series of questions. Here we go.
The importance of this question cannot be overstated. If the Prime Minister knew that a member of his Liberal caucus was working to keep two Canadian citizens arbitrarily and illegally incarcerated in windowless cells, potentially being tortured, he knew that and did nothing, that would be a devastating scandal against our national interests. So I am simply asking for the government to clarify. On what date did the Prime Minister find out the revelations that one of his MPs may have helped keep our people in jail?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knew very well what was happening to the two Michaels and made sure that his government would be standing up against China in the context of their arbitrary detention.
Unserious, not trustworthy, right? Mike says, looks like Pierre had Melanie a tad flustered. Michael Cooper as well says a report based on national security sources says a Liberal MP advised a Beijing diplomat to let the two Michaels languish in jail because their release would help the CPC. 24 times today we asked when Prime Minister Trudeau was first briefed. 24 times the Liberals refused to say, draw your own conclusions. And I won't play this, but you get the point. Poilievre started the questioning 3 times, 4 times. When was he briefed? And they wouldn't answer. This is not a trustworthy or serious government. This Kevin Voung thing is just like, his speech is great. And so I think we're gonna listen to it. It's not all 8 minutes, but just I'll stop it when it makes sense to be stopped. I guess there's a Mark Gerritsen intro here. I'll cue it up properly. All right, this is Voung's time at the House, and his tweet says, why is the government allowing Canada to become a doormat for foreign powers? In other countries, there wouldn't be a special rapporteur, there would be a special prosecutor. I call on the government to provide Mr. Johnston with the powers to fully investigate the Liberal Party. Their response: Mr. Johnston is deeply involved in what he's supposed to be investigating. There is no way he is arm's length. There's no way he's the right person to be doing this. I said I can't remember who I was talking to yesterday. I said, are we still doing this rapporteur thing, or is this an inquiry? Change the rapporteur, like remove the need for it, because the rapporteur is garbage and somebody should be held accountable for even coming up with that harebrained idea. No, you can't make up nonsense posts to point your friends to make you make problems that you create go away. We should address that. Anyway, Voung is interesting because he was removed from the Liberal caucus for a scandal that turned out to be less than what it seemed at first. And so that's interesting to note as well. But he's now standing up strong saying, hey, we should have a special prosecutor. What the heck is going on? Here we go.
Or Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, it's time for this government to stop the delays and its unexplained reluctance to shine a spotlight on foreign interference. Foreign operatives have been interfering in Canada's political system, in party nomination processes, and in election campaigns to place Chinese communist sympathizers in the provincial legislature and the House of Commons. Media have seen reports indicating Liberal Party officials and elected representatives have been involved. We are also aware of reports that have involved a member of the federal cabinet. Mr. Speaker, the situation is not new. The Prime Minister, various cabinet ministers, and senior members in the PMO were briefed about foreign activities and individuals who are complicit in illegal activities. However, the response from the Prime Minister has been to deflect this serious issue and delay doing anything. Now he has finally taken some action by appointing a special rapporteur to investigate foreign interference. However, it's not exactly clear what investigatory powers have been given to Mr. Johnston. While an individual of impeccable character, perhaps an exception being his bad choice of charitable boards, Mr. Johnston will be handcuffed and saran-wrapped if unable to investigate the inner activities of the Liberal Party's elected and non-elected members. Mr. Speaker, it would be unimaginable for the special rapporteur to have no authority to fully investigate the stated primary beneficiary of foreign interference, the Liberal Party of Canada. Why then, Mr. Speaker, has there been such a reluctance by the Prime Minister for a full, independent public inquiry? In other countries, there wouldn't be a special rapporteur, there would be a special prosecutor, one that would have full investigatory powers, including interviewing political party members, have subpoena powers, and to examine documents. Why is the government allowing Canada to become a doormat for foreign powers? Why is it extending protection to those who have deliberately interfered in our country's democratic processes? How is it possible for the Prime Minister to turn a blind eye to thugs who have intimidated and threatened Canadian citizens of Chinese heritage in the Greater Vancouver and Greater Toronto area? How can the government ignore shady and undeclared financial contributors and buses of instant just add water, Liberal nomination supporters, and paid volunteers to assist China's chosen candidates to get nominated and elected to all levels of government? Mr. Speaker, the goals of foreign operatives are simple: infiltrate political parties and assist selected candidates to obtain elected positions from which they could support Beijing's interests. And secondly, to defeat opposition nomination candidates and or elected representatives who were not favorable to Communist China or prevent them from being elected. Is the Prime Minister's continuing reluctance to do something in the face of such mounting evidence a result of being worried about what may come out of a full inquiry? Perhaps he's troubled by the growing suspicions being cast on cabinet, caucus, and party members. What's worrying our Prime Minister? What is it that has made him turn a long, blind eye? Wouldn't the mounting evidence and allegations of foreign interference provide valid concerns to the Prime Minister? Is the Prime Minister worried of political fallout from the interference and his reluctance to do something? Is he worried that others in his party will be implicated? Obviously, one must protect Canada's intelligence service networks and their methods on how they acquire information. But when the network starts leaking information to the media about foreign interference, it kind of suggests they've lost faith in their political masters and their ability to do something about foreign interference.
I'll leave it there. I mean, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it because it was all so on point. Well done, Kevin Voung. Well done. So, very interesting situation. Dan McTigue, he's a former MP. He says, "Friends, I wholeheartedly agree with Kevin Voung. It is now time for a special prosecutor to be tasked with investigating the Liberal Party." Yeah, and not David Johnston. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Here is the Globe and Mail, and it says, Trudeau government decided CSIS transcript of NP Han Dong provided no actionable evidence. This was published today, published yesterday, updated 2 hours ago. The Trudeau government determined that there was no actionable evidence, quotes around actionable evidence, after it received a CSIS transcript of an early 2021 conversation between Liberal MP Han Dong and China's top diplomat in Toronto, according to a senior government source, saying conclusions could not be drawn that Mr. Dong asked Beijing to keep two Canadians in prison for political reasons. But when the allegations against Mr. Dong surfaced in a Global News report on Wednesday, the MP left the Liberal caucus to sit as an independent. On Thursday, he told the Globe and Mail that he intends to launch a defamation lawsuit against Global News, which, citing two unnamed national security sources, CSIS leakers, reported the assertions related to Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. Mr. Dong said he would have never advocated that the two Canadians should be kept in jail to benefit the Liberals. The Prime Minister's office and its National Security Office reached out to the Canadian Security Intelligence Service to provide a copy of the transcript after the PMO was first approached by the Globe on the matter 2.5 weeks ago. The source said the Globe is not identifying the source because they were not authorized to publicly discuss national security matters. The Globe contacted the PMO on March 3rd to ask whether CSIS had alerted the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, about a February 2021 conversation where Mr. Dong allegedly made the suggestion about the fate of Mr. Spavor and Mr. Kovrig. The Globe did not report on the alleged contents of the conversation because it was unable to obtain transcripts or a tape recording to authenticate what actually transpired. Mr. Dong said Thursday that he left the caucus of his own accord, quote, to clear my name, and I see no other path. He said he is suing Global because this is for my family's honor. The allegations are very serious. They're untrue, he said of the media outlet. That's not something that I would say. Global News did not specifically respond to the threat of a lawsuit when contacted by the Globe. Global News is governed by a rigorous set of journalistic principles and practices, and we are very mindful of the public interest and legal responsibility of this important accountability reporting, said Sonia Verma, editor-in-chief and VP of Global National News, in an email. So there you go. Lots of developments in Han Dong situation, etc. Voting with the opposition to investigate this. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. I'm not expecting to get the whole truth, so don't mistakenly believe that I'm saying, oh, when we get finished with this investigation, we'll be all right as rain. I think there's a while to go. There's a couple of conversations that need to be had before we're right as rain. National Post says, while Americans declassify China info, the Liberals keep hiding it. Yeah, it's a problem. Although Joe Biden seems to have the same problem that Justin Trudeau's got. When President Joe Biden meets Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa this week, perhaps they might discuss declassifying sensitive intelligence related to China. In the United States, that means disclosing what American intelligence services knew about the origins of the coronavirus in the Wuhan Virology Laboratory. In Canada, it means not disclosing what our security services knew about potential Chinese regime support for the Liberal Party of Canada. To the contrary, in Canada, the RCMP is looking into a potential prosecution for leaks about Chinese communist support for Trudeau's party, Trudeau's Constituency Association, and the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. On the American side, the U.S. Department of Energy concluded that the coronavirus was likely the result of a leak from the Wuhan Virology Lab, not natural transmission. Funded by Fauci from the Ukrainian lab, moved to Wuhan to be released there to frame the Chinese? I don't know. But I'm not sure that I believe these guys know the whole story either. So take that all with a grain of salt, what's going on with who funded the research, the gain of function research, where it was done, who it was done by, what they were doing, the practice of moving virology, just like in 12 Monkeys from one lab to another using diplomatic papers, right? And Bellerophon. And, oh man, what was the other? There was Mission Impossible, and it was... There was some name for the antidote that had some kind of important plot thing. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it right now. But anyway, it seems like this kind of thing was done in fiction, and reality, who knows? But I'm not taking these guys' word for it. But it's interesting that Joe Biden is under heat for China transferring money to his son, and who knows how many other people the Chinese have bought, right? Alan Fryer says a blistering indictment of the Trudeau Liberals national security record. Canada is now so compromised that Canada's intelligence sharing allies, particularly in the Five Eyes alliance, are quietly wondering if it's safe to share sensitive information with Canada. Aw, dough. Ryan says he's responding to this report. Trudeau government gave info of Freedom Convoy supporters to Chinese banks. Remember yesterday I was talking about the list? Here's just a reminder of that. According to an inquiry of ministry, the RCMP shared a blacklist of 198 Canadian trucking companies with foreign banks, including the Bank of China, BNP Paribas of France, State Bank of India, Habib Bank of Pakistan, and Citibank of New York, among others. A government, and Ryan says, just imagine what we don't know. Any man capable of doing this is capable of much worse. A government that does this to its own citizens, you have to question that. That is a serious, that is not acting in your citizens' best interest. Hey, the rest of the world, look at these jerk Canadians, says the Canadian government. I don't know, man. Especially if they're truckers who are protesting for freedom. The Canadian government looks worse and worse and worse every single day. It's unbelievable to me. The food professor says what most Canadians don't know is that China is processing our own milk right here in Kingston, Ontario, and sending all of the production, baby formula, to China. The Chinese-owned company, Canada Royal Milk, is receiving funding from Ottawa and Ontario. It can be done. So here, it carries on. It's kind of a pseudo thread. This is the company's website. And he says, here's an article from CBC News about Ontario Dairy's involvement with the Chinese and the Kingston-based plant, owned and operated by China. Little information has been publicly disclosed by the dairy farmers of Ontario. I talked about this a bit yesterday. And here's the breakdown I was looking for. Somebody tweeted this out, and this guy's the food safety manager. I should follow him. I think I like his tweets. He's good. Oh, he's got 2 followers now. He says, so basically this company purchases milk in Canada and manufactures and exports finished product to China at a lower cost than it would be to purchase, manufacture, and distribute in their own country. The lower cost is due to taxpayers' money being used to facilitate it. Fire LaForge. And food professor says, basically, yes, Canada's food safety record is hugely important. So they wooed this company to Ontario with taxpayer money to create jobs. That was the whole point. Last year, here's the report, the news report for this company. It says workers at a baby formula plant claim harassment by managers. Workers who said they feared for their physical safety on the job reported their mental health suffered as well. Employees at the Canada Royal Milk plant in Kingston. Interesting name, right? And remember Project Sidewinder, where the companies that are built in other countries are made to have a homegrown facade, look like they're local, right? Run by Canadians. Okay, anyway. The Canada Royal Milk plant in Kingston, Ontario says management treated them like minions by denying them safety gear that fit, harassing employees by accusing them of being overpaid and less industrious than workers in China, and, in one instance, making physical contact with a worker during a heated dispute. Efforts to organize and certify a union with the United Food and Commercial Workers has been tied up in hearings for the past year, while employee turnover at the plant in early months of operation was constant. And then they talk about the plant. But this was March 31st, 2021, a year ago, right? Pretty wild when you think about it. Pretty incredible, and how China's operating, and it has been operating here, considering what we know. It goes much deeper. It goes much deeper than what we know. Kevin O'Leary says Justin Trudeau is the worst. I know there are people out there who really don't like Kevin O'Leary. I'll just play this. It's a minute long. Sorry if you don't like him. Here we go.
How much trouble is Trudeau in?
I think there is very little chance that he is around much longer than the end of this year. He, in my view, is the worst manager Canada has ever had. The worst. The absolute worst. There is no one as bad as he's been. He's just a terrible manager. He's completely unqualified to be the CEO of Canada, which is what the Prime Minister is. It's so important that he is gone. We are the richest country on earth run by idiots. He has to step down. He should do it on his own, but the electoral system will do it for him. The worst manager. And just in case you didn't get it, he is the worst manager Canada's ever had.
The Brita of prime ministers. Okay? It's the worst. The absolute worst. Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. You can check out full episodes of Canada Poly every day at CanadaPoly.com. You can also go to CanadaPoly.com and pick up a ticket for a live event. The live event is taking place in Streetsville, and the location will be provided to ticket holders. But you can check out a live event. Dr. Patrick Phillips, Sarah C., and Scarlett Martin. I'm sorry, Sarah. I don't know I can't say your last name, and I'm terrible at saying last names. We'll be joining Greg Wycliffe and myself for an uncensored round table. It would be lovely if you could join us. Tickets at CanadaPoly.com. And if you live in Toronto, Mississauga, Milton, GTA, Hamilton, Guelph, Kitchener, Cambridge, it's probably well worth the drive to Streetsville. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.